All right, the meeting's being recorded, so everybody, best behavior. No nose picking.
Check.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Sarah Lee.
Hey, Miss Connie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I've got two Connies up there, but I forwarded her my message, and so Sarah Lee, can you fix that, or do you need to?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to do something. What's up?
Katie, I forwarded. Well, we got two Connie Callaways up there because I forwarded to her my.
Oh,
Zoom.
he needs a name change.
I can do that. I do know how to do that, I believe. Let me take a peek. I can.
Hey, Connie.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Okay. Is there only one Connie now?
There is one Connie
And one Katie.
and one Katie.
Y'all know I can't be still. I'm having to move around.
Oops. You are so quiet.
Not anymore. Just kidding.
Yeah, Allison.
Allison, I see we're both doing the same thing.
Yeah, hanging out outside. I know
Right.
Lily's supposed to be outside. That's why I'm out here, because she wanted to play, but apparently not anymore. Call me. Look at this butterfly, though. Can you see that? Probably not. Darn it. Just hanging out over here. Got a picture of it, but it's terrible. You can't see it on the screen. Anyway, it's so pretty. Old stone. Hey, so y'all get a chance. I just posted a great picture of Wilson from Legacy. He's on the Front Porch Project Palestine page, and he's wearing shorts and knee socks.
Hey.
You posted it on Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it.
You don't see it? Let's see.
I see it. I don't know why I can't see it. Last thing I see is Lily loves holding Daisy.
Oh, you know what? It's on the Front Porch Project. Front Porch Project.
Oh.
But I'll share it for mine because it's good. That's that good. It's a special picture.
doggo.
Oh my God.
See that. Hilarious.
There were a lot of poses to choose from on those
I
pictures.
bet.
Yeah, they were all really nice.
Candace, I saw your eyes open up a little bit more.
Oh, you moved places.
Yeah, Tovar's at the bottom now.
I meant physically, like from this morning. when
Oh,
we
we
got-
didn't have, yeah, we didn't have the mishap yesterday that happened at True Care. We didn't have internet. And so I had to do my thing from home this morning, and I'm back at True Care now.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Allison, is that your back?
Yes.
Dang, it looks like you're in like Miami or something.
Yeah, usually my kid's flashing in the background, but she didn't show up today.
I look like I'm in a jungle.
No, you look like you're in like East Texas.
yeah.
See, I have East Texas that direction. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see it now.
yeah, still in the woods.
So I don't know how big this group is going to be today. It's our first one. Hopefully we won't have to do this, many more times, maybe one more month. We have the capability on this Zoom to have over 200 people, and there's no limit. I've been hosting our Rotary groups, which Wednesday was over 50. So everyone's always welcome. A little bit of Facebook Zoom etiquette. If any of you are not familiar with using it, which I'm sure most of you are, just mute yourself. If you don't mute yourself and you come across over the speaker, then I'll go in and mute you, but you can unmute yourself at any time after Tovar opens it up for questions and answers. And that way, if a dog barks or somebody jumps in the pool or somebody comes in my office, whatever, we're not going over Dr. Tovar. Sound fair?
Sounds good.
Good to me.
Okay, so it's a little afternoon, so I say that we get started. I am recording this. Tovar, be yourself. I'm just recording this to put in our HAAC private group for anybody that missed it. Okay?
All right. I'll try to keep the profanity at a low.
And somebody's walking in my office. I told you. Okay, sorry.
All right, guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this for you guys. I'm sure y'all have heard this over and over and over and over again, but this is something new. It's a life-changing experience that we're all going through, and it's always important that we stay up to date. So, in a nutshell, what we have right now is we have a epidemic at hand. It's affecting everybody's lives, and it's affecting everybody in a completely different way. It's been challenging our government. It's been challenging our personal lives, our economy, the politics, our jobs. Just this one little bug that we don't see has essentially flipped everybody's lives around. Thank goodness that we're all in healthcare, but unfortunately, a lot of us cannot say the same thing. So with that said, let's get down to the nitty gritty. So right now we have a virus that essentially originates in China. It's called COVID-19. COVID-19, the name COVID, Corona, then the VI virus, and then D for December, and then the 19 is for 2019. So coronavirus discovered in December of 2019. That's where you get the COVID-19. Now, coronavirus, to this day, there's many different strands. There's 3 that I know of that we test for the most part when we do a viral panel. This new coronavirus, this novel virus, if you will, we do not have any kind of testing, or we did not. We do now. Unfortunately, a lot of the testing that we have right now is, I like to call them beta versions, simply because we do not have, they're not fine-tuned yet. They work, but we still have the capability of having a false negative. So if you want to compare it to other tests we have, it's like as if we do the strep test, the rapid strep test, or the rapid flu test. They're called rapid because you get this result quick, but you have a 30% chance of getting a negative result. When you look in the throat, you see white spots on the tonsils, it's strep. Same concept goes with the flu, and same concept goes with the current testing we have with the swabs. That's why I do not make such a big deal about the testing, but we'll get to that in a minute. Going back to actually the virus, it's part of the corona family. It's the same family that the MERS is in. If we think back in 2013, when we had the epidemic of the MERS, I think this was back in Taiwan, they used the hydrochloroquine and the azithromycin. And so because this virus is seen to come from the same family, it is presumed that this drug can potentially do positive effects with individuals that are sick. That's where this whole concept started. However, it has not been proven. It's basically, let me put it to you this way. Based on observations, when using the drug, there has been good outcomes, but we don't have numbers. We don't have a study with good enough power to say, yes, it works, let's do it. But we don't have anything better. So you know what, screw it. Better to use something than nothing, right? That's conceptually where we're at right now. So this coronavirus, there's been articles that have come out showing that there may be different strains or mutating. And the reality is that it may be, we don't know. But if you think about it, let's say we're all humans, right? We're all coronaviruses, but we all replicate. We're still considered humans, but we're not the same. It's the same thing with the corona. Every time it infects somebody and replicates, it looks like it, but it's not the same. They're similar. So we're trying to find one specific protein that stays the same. And if we can find that protein, we can get the vaccines, and we can potentially find a drug that will attack exactly to the virus and nothing else. See what I'm saying? So that's essentially what is going on. Antibodies do the same thing. They try to find a specific protein to that virus. And if you have the immunity, you know, it's gonna show that you have the antibodies or not. None of these tests have proven to give you immunity or protect you 100%. None of the masks, none of those homemade masks, they don't give you 100% immunity. The N95s are super specialized They protect you, but again, you don't get immunity because guess what? You can get inoculated through the eyes. So make sure you have glasses too. Anybody can get this virus. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, Chinese, Hispanic, anybody can get it. Rich, poor, anybody. There was a study or there was an observation in Detroit. They noticed that a lot of the people that were sick, a lot of them were the African American. Even though 30% of Detroit population was African American, 70% of the 30% were in the ICU. So then there's this whole speculation that, oh, it specifically attacks towards the African American community. I don't think there's any proof yet shown that it attacks or worsen or hits worse the African American community than any other race. It just so happened, we just so happened to see that was because, unfortunately, the Hispanic community, the African American community, we are in the low social economic status. And so when you're in that low social economic status, guess what? You don't have the same income, you don't have those same privileges. Therefore, you most likely will, you'll get hit. Now there's a cultural aspect too. Not trying to diss anybody here. I'm just saying the Hispanic community tends to be more close together, family oriented. And so funny that the mayor was talking to me about that, saying like, I'm worried about the Hispanic community. I'm like, why? I don't get it. Oh, it's because we're hands-on. Yeah, that makes sense. I got you, man. All right, I'll tell him. So yeah, anybody can get this. The problem is, even though we all get it, we can all get exposed to it, but I don't know if I will end up in the ICU or I'll just have a cough or nothing. But then somebody like Sarah Lee, she may get something completely different, or even Connie, or even Miss Candace. So that I think is a huge issue, and that's why it's kind of scary, because you don't know if you get it, what's going to happen. Dude, we have 34-year-old that super healthy. He's on a vent. You have randomly a 12-year-old girl die. And then you have an 101-year-old guy in his wheelchair. Oh, yeah, I got corona. I'm fine. I survived. So it just doesn't, that's the scary part. And I think that's what I would be freaked out about. But if we do the proper, we take care of ourselves and we follow procedures, we should be okay. Now, the question is, how does this virus spread? All right. So let's remember back in December, I was on a cruise in December, and I was in Miami, and then I came back. And then all of a sudden, there's this whole thing going on. And then the next thing you know it, the virus is in our backyard. It grew exponentially. How does that happen? Well, one way to figure out how this propagated so quickly, well, air, right? Air is everywhere. If a virus is super small and you can't see it, it must be light enough to where it can just travel easily. So with that said, because it travels in the air, now we're thinking the following. Okay, if a patient is sick and we know it travels in air, okay, based on studies and analysis done in the past, based on the size of a virus, based on wind, whatever, the likelihood of a virus traveling to another person within 6 feet, the probability is high. If the person is outside the 6-foot range of the individual that is sick, the probability of getting sick is low. So that's where the 6-foot rule came from, was from those studies. Now, this case is somewhat different because this thing is so contagious. Why? Okay, now let's go back. The CDC first came out saying anybody that is sick or is a healthcare worker wears a mask, right? There's some logic to it. It makes sense. I mean, why does everybody else have to wear a mask if they feel fine? Only the person that is exposed to the individual that is sick should wear a mask, because conceptually, at that time, the mask was kind of like protecting yourself, but then the person that's wearing the mask that is sick is protecting others from themselves. But that was placed, and then the question starts, the question you should ask is like, how the hell is this still propagating if we did that? There's something else. So then there was a recent study, I think it came out of MIT, showing how you could potentially, the virus can propagate outside of the 6-foot range just by talking and breathing alone. Let's think about that for a second. It makes sense. Why? Because if you put your face next to a window or a mirror and you breathe on it, guess what? That mirror window is going to fog up, right? That's to tell you, when you breathe out, you're breathing water vapor. That's condensation on that window and mirror. If you breathe out water vapor, guess what? When you're talking and breathing, water particles are coming out of your breath. And what's crazy is that these particles are actually smaller than when you sneeze or cough. So what does that mean? That means that if you're in front of a vent, or if you're talking to somebody and you're positive, you could potentially infect another person. And it's much worse than coughing or sneezing. So then all of a sudden, you have this concept now that everybody should wear a mask. Okay? So there's logic to what's going on when the CDC comes out with new recommendations and everything. Now, I can go off tangent and go on to this whole political BS that it just doesn't make sense, but I'm not going to, because it's just a bunch of negative stuff. But the mask essentially is to protect others from yourself. This mask does not give you immunity. Okay? That's something that everybody needs to understand. This concept of wearing a mask only works when everybody wears a mask. If everybody wore a mask, we are essentially protecting ourselves from each other. That's the whole point. Well, Dr. Tovar, what about, this whole cloth idea of just taking oh my God, how do you say that in English? A bufanda, when it's cold outside, and you wear it around your neck, you wrap it around. A scarf. Yeah, I read some lips, thanks. A scarf. So how is a scarf or a piece of cloth, how does that help? I want a mask. I want the N95. Well, let's be real, America. 75% of us do not know how to use an N95. Okay, let's just be real. Second of all, you don't know how to use an N95 mask. So, and then you have the surgical masks. Those ones, they're okay. But Dr. Tovar, they use those surgical masks in surgery. Yes, I get it. But these masks, way back when they were created, they were studied, they were analyzed. They do their job for surgical purposes. This virus has literally tested every boundary. You're literally using a mask for something that has never been studied for. So let me give you an example. If anybody can remember the movie Apollo 13, those guys were stuck up in space trying to survive with what they have. And there was a big issue because the command module was dying of oxygen, and the only way they could survive was going to the lunar module and surviving there, even though the lunar module was not built for that purpose. This is the same concept. We're taking what we have and using it in a way that the properties, the way we've made it, we could potentially use it for something else. So that's what is going on at the moment. The size of this virus is 0.1 microns. It's super small. The N95 mask can filter 0.01 microns and above, effectively around 95%. A surgical mask does about 0.1 to 0.3 microns. However, it is not as effective as an N95 mask simply because it doesn't completely surround your face. The N95 does. N95 masks, you do not want to touch the outside of the mask. Why? Because when you breathe in, those particles are sitting on the outside of that mask. You touch the outside of that N95, and then you rub your eyeball, you're done. Or like you scratch your skin, or like you pick a scab, dude, get out of here, you're done. N95 didn't do anything for you. A surgical mask, it serves its purpose in the sense that, remember the 6-foot rule, okay? The surgical mask doesn't cover your face completely, but when you talk, when you breathe, when you cough, when you sneeze, that mask is protecting the other person from getting my germs. So wearing a mask decreases the probability of an individual getting sick from me if they are within 5 to 6 feet from me. So instead of these particles traveling beyond 6 feet, they're traveling, say, up to 2 feet. All right. So again, this is all based on studies. There is research out there that is public. So that's the mask. There is a recent article that came out showing that if you actually took nylon material and put it on top of cotton, it increases the probability of the percentage of filtration of the air you breathe in by about 10 to 20%. That's pretty cool. Nylon, never thought about that. But let's think about this for a second, because you ladies are much better at fabric than I am. So if you took a 400 knitted sheet and a 900 knitted sheet, which one do you think feels softer? The 900, right? But if you took that 900 knitted sheet and you fold it 4 times and you try to breathe through it, it's a little tough. Why? Because now you have the thickness of the layer of fabric that you're trying to breathe through. The thicker, the likelihood of the probability of you not breathing in something bad. That's just, now we're talking about the properties of filters, all right? This is what I would do. I ghetto fab this. I was cheap. I'm cheap. I'm a cheap guy. I can't find a surgical mask. And you know what? Some dude decided to buy all the N95s. Whatever. Check this out. So I investigated the air filters and the air conditioning. We all have that. All right. I went to Lowe's and I got the most expensive filter. It's the Filtrette from 3M. I think the number is 2,500. So the air conditioning filters have a different system, a different rating system, okay? It's called the MERV, M-E-R-V. There's MERV 0 all the way to MERV 20. A MERV 17 to a MERV 20 are air filters that are used at the hospitals, surgical rooms, ICU rooms. So those filters are fantastic. Like those will filter exactly what an N95 mask will do. If not, they will probably do better. The problem is those are expensive as hell and they're only made for like hospitals and stuff. You're not gonna find that at Lowe's. So it is safe to say that a air filter of MERV 17 to MERV 20 is the same thing as an N95 mask. Now, if you took MERV 14 to a MERV 16, that right there is about the equivalent of a surgical mask. Those ones will filter about 75% of particles that are between 0.01 to 0.1 microns. And then it does a good job with 0.1 microns and above, about 95%. So knowing that, I can tell you that's where a surgical mask ranges. So the filter that I got is a MERV 14. So that means we're close to the range of a surgical mask. So all I did was I took that filter, I broke it apart, and if you know, those air conditioning filters are about an inch thick. When you break it apart, you'll realize that it's a piece of paper that's kind of folded like an accordion. When you break it apart, it actually is 2 layers of filter paper. When you take it apart, it's like, I would say like 4 feet long. You can make a crap load of filter masks with those. So essentially, you've just created a mask with your homemade cotton mask. You put that filter inside it and try to make sure it covers your face almost complete. You've just made yourself a mask that could potentially be equivalent to that of a surgical mask. If not, probably a little better if you can make it cover your face completely. It's a ghetto fab move. Again, you're using a filter now in a homemade barrier, if you will. I don't call them masks anymore. I call the homemade ones barriers. Because when people hear masks, it's like, oh, you have a mask? Oh my gosh, let me have one. No, dude, it's not gonna like it's not gonna like protect you 100%. It's a barrier that will decrease the probability. The reason I talk about the idea that I was rambling on for about 2 minutes is because those are masks that you could potentially use in individuals that are immune compromised, that are in the public. Giving them that filter to put in their homemade barrier will essentially give them that extra probability of helping them not get sick. That's all it is. It's a great idea. The only thing is that I can't tell you that it's gonna do 100% what an N95 does because I have no way to prove it. But yeah, that's just an idea for you guys to know. So let's get back on track here. So what are the symptoms of the COVID-19? Well, It takes about a week and a half to 2 weeks to even start having symptoms once you get exposed. Usually the first symptoms are, could be a cough, could be increase in body temperature, body aches. Some people don't experience anything. Usually after a week or a week and a half with the cough, body aches, some fever, some of the symptoms may go away. Others progress into higher increase in body temperature, so fever now, high grade fever, lethargy, shortness of breath, sore throat, overall just lethargic. Symptoms usually last, if they are mild, they'll last about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, give or take. It's a range, guys. This isn't something like specific. But people that have had to go to the hospital, their symptoms about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's just very broad. A couple of the new things that came up was this taste. People have lost their taste. Now, recently, especially the kids, they have this rash on their foot, or like a, it may look like a, not an ulcer, but like a blister, or little fine red spots all over their feet, is what we call petechia. Is essentially small hemorrhage or clots forming at the bottom of the feet. That's something new. That was, I think, discovered or noticed in India. It was an Indian doctor. She has like a slide going around that's green that has different pictures of how people that have tested positive with COVID, how their feet can look like. So that's pretty cool to know. But for the most part, what's severe about this is the shortness of breath and how people can just quickly lose their breath. The oxygen is the problem. So they're saying, so let me rephrase. So the conceptually, we know that the virus essentially enters the body via the ACE receptor. Okay. ACE, what do you mean? Isn't that like a blood pressure medication? Yes, there's a lot of blood pressure medications that use that ACE to lower blood pressure. Long story short, at the beginning, there was this big scare that, oh, people that take the ACE medication, they're going to be more susceptible. Don't take that blood pressure medication anymore. No, that's not the case. If anything, there's observations showing that people that are on the ACE medications, somehow they're fine. But again, that's all observational. There's no statistical analysis. There's just presumptuous conclusions with no basis. It's like saying the measles, mumps, rubella causes autism when there's no statistical analysis. Anyways, so the bug enters through that receptor. It then gets into cells, begins to replicate, and then it'll use the cell's DNA to replicate itself until the cell blows up, because it cannot hold all the viruses inside the cell. The cell blows up, and now you have a gazillion viruses inside your body, and that's how it replicates itself. Issues with this: deoxygenation. Your red blood cells is the problem. Your red blood cells carry oxygen. You don't have red blood cells, you don't have oxygen. So what they notice is individuals that have been in the ICU intubated, when they draw their blood, it's like dark. Like dark. Like that's some scary stuff, man. Meaning that you're low of oxygen. Like, it makes sense why you are having issues breathing. And then the other thing too is that, and we don't know why, but individuals that are hospitalized on vents, they end up dying because their body goes into what we call a leukotriene storm. In other words, your body was just like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to nuke everything. I don't care. I'm going to take out my kids, children, dogs, fish. Boom, the immune system just goes haywire, and there's no coming back from that. It was like your whole body went to shock. So it's just, it sucks. So, okay, Dr. Tovar. So how is it that these people are on vents? Like, what's going on? Well, they're on vents because their lungs fill up with fluid. It's what we call ARSD, acute respiratory distress syndrome. Wait, ARDS, sorry. Acute respiratory distress syndrome. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that you're essentially drowning. Your lungs are filled with fluid, you're drowning. You're not getting any oxygen. So in order to do that, in order to, keep people alive, we have to intubate them, we have to sedate them, and then we have to control their breathing in the way where we're diminishing or mitigating the inflammation response. When we can do that, the body itself can have the ability to recuperate. That fluid can go away. And then we can extubate the person. Clearly, it's more complicated than what I'm saying. I'm just giving you the overview, but that's essentially what's going on and why these people are going to the ICU. It's because this virus quickly causes respiratory failure, fluid in the lungs, and it's a process that the body itself cannot reverse. So this is where I go into this whole comparison with the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu, first of all, had nothing to do with the Spanish. They don't know where the Spanish flu originated. And if anything, I think the Spanish flu was actually the N1H1. There's speculations that it came from Kansas City, Europe, and then what was the other one? I can't remember. I think it was Asia. I think it was China, but it was debunked because China was too isolated from the rest of the world. No, anyways, it doesn't matter. Point being is that N1H1 kind of did the same thing, to where it decimated population like crazy. In this case, this bug is similar to that Spanish flu. However, we're technologically advanced now to where we can mitigate the losses tremendously. Oh yeah, the Spanish flu is called because the people in Spain were the first ones to like put it in newspaper, and they would describe all the stuff, and so people assumed it was the Spanish flu because that's where the first, I guess, publicly written information about the flu started. So people thought it actually started there. Anyways, what was I gonna say? So yeah, no, comparing the Spanish flu to the COVID-19, they're very similar in the sense that this is where the scientific community is like, oh man, what if you get a second exposure? Oh, there's going to be a second wave. Oh, it could be worse than the first one. Well, because the Spanish flu, the second wave was worse than the first. And actually, the Spanish flu, the second wave, there was a lot more younger men dying than elderly. Well, that's because the first wave killed off most of the elderly. And if you think about dengue, when you get sick with dengue, the first time is actually not as bad. But when you get it the second time, it sucks. That's why the scientific community is kind of divided in the sense that, is the second wave going to be as bad? Is this more like the flu? Because if you get the flu the second time, it's all right. You know, you still probably get the same symptoms, but not as long. But here, we don't know if you get exposed the second time, what's going to happen. It could be worse. So that's where this whole hype with like, oh, we got to do the antibody testing now. Because the swab only tells you if you have it and you don't. The antibodies tell you that you did have it or you didn't have it. But just because you get the antibody test doesn't mean you're immune. Just because you already have the antibodies for it doesn't mean you can't get it again. That doesn't mean that the second time you do get it, it's going to be not as bad. We don't know. We do not know. So the best thing to do right now, because there's so much uncertainty, so much in question, so much debacles, so much political turmoil, so much economical distraught. Just use your common sense, right? Put your mask on, do the 6-foot rule, and limit exposure. That's all you got to do. And we can mitigate this. I hate to use Taiwan as an example, but Taiwan got hit hard with MRSA and SARS. And if you look at their numbers and see how close they are to the epicenter, their numbers are pretty good. They essentially took a more of a democratic authoritarian approach, and people abide to it, and they're safe. It's a little different here, but we like to use data. We like to use structure, so it's different. But do I feel like we have done a good job? I do. Given the circumstances, I do. Could it have been quicker? I don't know. If we reacted sooner, would there have been more lives saved? I don't know. But this is what it is now. This is what we're dealing with. And this is what we know. Now, I've talked about the world. Let's talk about Palestine. Palestine is in a great situation, or was at least. I'm trying to tread lightly here because we're starting to. I feel like I'm poking the bear here. I see you, Connie. I'm kidding. I personally believe that the hospital and the city have done a great job. I think that I think the city has been able to take a stance at certain places that have a high potential of contact, hair salons, nail salons, schools, but there's places that are essential. Walmart, Lowe's, Kroger's, Brookshire's, gasoline stations. Those places are, they're essential. And they need to be open. And I thought at the beginning they were doing such a great job. But like I mentioned in the first town hall meeting, it only takes one person to mess it up. One. And guess what happened? Yes, our jail system failed us. I do think there was a ball drop there. I don't want to say much about it, but this is the current situation we're on. And the best thing we can do right now is just to protect ourselves, be smart. One person in the family, go do what you got to do. bring it all back. Be cautious of who you hang out with, you know. Take the necessary steps that you have to. It's the best thing you can do. Our hospital can only do so much. Our city can only do so much. But if we just don't follow it, the recommendations and the guidelines, and you want to take it as, you know, the government taking away your rights and stuff, well then go do what you want to do. But stay the hell away from me. So that's it in a nutshell. We don't have any vaccines. We don't have any drugs. Everything is speculated. If I do have a patient, though, in a nursing home and is sick, COVID, you bet your ass I will put them on something, all right? I'm not going to sit there and be like, this is still evidence. You know what? Hey, I'm going to throw everything. I'm going to throw vitamin C, some magnesium, zinc, and I'll sprinkle some azithromycin with hydrochloroquine. Absolutely. I got to save my elderly people. But if, you know, you're an individual like all y'all, myself, not hospitalized, not in any, go home, quarantine yourself, stay away from others. If you really do feel bad, okay, that's when you go to the ER. That's what it's there for. That's how it's supposed to be. Contact your doctor, contact your provider, tell them what your symptoms are. They can test you. They may not need to test you. Me personally, I've only been testing individuals that are at areas or work at areas that have a potential to cause issues, like Sanders and Farms, Walmart, Lowe's, nursing homes, the jail. That's what I'm doing. If people randomly come up to me, be like, hey, can I have a test? Like, no, go home. However, we have to take the necessary precautions simply because 1 week, it was just a little cough and a scratchy throat. The next week, all of a sudden, you're in the ER. So when you're sick, you're having symptomatic changes, be in contact with your PCP. Don't be afraid to go to the ER if you feel like you're not sure. And always be mindful of, you know, there's help out there. You just gotta be mindful and do it correctly. That's all I got. Any questions?
So, you personally, Dr. Tovar, do you have any patients that are confirmed with COVID-19?
Yeah, not me personally, but the clinic, yes. And the hospital, yes. I can't give out numbers, sorry.
And of the cases that we're being told about that are confirmed, they're just public knowledge, those are all still just quarantined at home?
For the most part, yes.
What does that mean for the most part?
So your question was, those that have tested positive, they're quarantined at home?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Not all of them. That's why I said for the most part, yeah, most of them are quarantined at home, but you have some of those that are severe.
Oh, are there? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
And they're in the hospital?
There's some in the hospital, yes.
Okay. I don't want to hog up all the questions.
One at a time, people, one at a time.
Okay.
How long are y'all seeing the results are taking to get back? Because I know that's kind of fluctuated at times, a week, some it's 24 to 48 hours. What are y'all noticing right now?
That's a good question. So, yeah, it's fluctuating a lot, but actually it's gotten a lot better these past couple of weeks. For the most part, it takes about 2 to 3 days. So that's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's a
much
good
better.
turnaround.
And the results are still going straight to the health department, and then they notify you guys directly, or are they coming back to your clinic first?
For my understanding is that every test going out, there's a state document and then the lab document going out. So when it does come out positive, those results should be going to the state automatically. And then we get notified with the results as well.
Okay.
So your opinion, not facts, in your opinion, Dr. Tovar, where do you think we are as a state, as a county, from safely going back to some sort of normal with putting precautions in place, but what everybody has coined it as opening up?
That's a good question. So what are we? We're in April 23rd. We're not expecting our peak to be until around May 5th. So we're honestly here in this area, we're not nowhere anywhere close. It was going to be April 28th, but given the jail, we're still going up. We thought our peak was going to be closer, but it's still going up. Texas as a whole has done pretty good, but I know Texas in general has been one of the cities or one of the states that has had low numbers of testing. So it's kind of hard to determine, but it's a little scary. It's a little nerve-wracking because, I mean, to be honest, like I hate to say it, but your question is kind of nullified on its own just because Abbott's already made up his mind. We're all waiting to see what happens Monday. That's when the big guy is going to tell us what to do, what he wants to do, when to do it, how to do it, all that stuff. But we supposedly got the green light already to do elective surgeries, but I just haven't heard a confirmation about anything. Everything right now is just, we're not in the clear. We're not. We're predicting that Palestine is going to get a little worse. Worse in the sense like the numbers are going to go up, not worse in the sense like, oh my God, we're like the new New York. No. It still sucks.
Dr. Tovar?
I mean, yeah.
So question, not to create panic, but I know a lot of people with symptoms, especially younger, aren't being tested. You know, they're sitting home to be quarantined. So like in our area, especially with the prison system failure, the positive test being reported versus what's probably just being quarantined at home, what's kind of the difference in those numbers in your opinion? Not that you have access to know all of it, but would you say it's half and half?
Oh God, no. Oh no. No way is it half and half. The number of positives that we have do not at all reflect the true positives out there. I know for a fact myself, I have told multiple people to go home, stay there, and once your symptoms abate, then we'll talk. I honestly believe there's more out there than the numbers that we have currently. Not by half, but like probably 2 to 1, 3 to 1.
Wow. And and I think that's kind of scary because because you get kind of lax, especially like you said with the governor opening things up, people start getting a little more laxed. And so the public not knowing that, they're kind of getting laxed, and then that creates the pandemic, in which we're going to see more and more, I think, with the prison, because there's so many people that work out there and they're coming home and they're going to the family community. So I think, like you said, we're going to be hit way worse while others are going down. So anyway, thank you. That's all my question was.
So I can rebuttal that. I can go against it and tell you, because we're rural, we're more spread out than the city. So that is actually a protective thing that we have that we already do. We all live out in the boonies. We got trees between us, and those trees create barriers between us. And so, guess what? The wind is going to hit those trees. It dampers a little bit the propagation. So if you look at East Texas, yes, the numbers are high compared to the rest of Texas, but overall, I think we're not too bad. But we still have the probability, we still have the risk. There's still too many unknowns, and so we have to take the extra precautions regardless.
I've got one more question. So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, so I split my time. I'm just going to preface with this as an example. I live in Cherokee County, but work in Anderson County, so I'm halfway between both. If I was to get tested, number is, say I go see Dr. Record and it's positive, that number is counted for Cherokee County because that's where I reside, or is it in Anderson County? How are they differentiating the positive cases as to what county they go in?
That's a good question. And so at the beginning, they were, Texas was marking positive wherever you tested.
Okay.
But then, I don't remember when, and I think it was sometime last month, Abbott started noticing that his numbers were different than that showing up on the Johns Hopkins website. And he was like, how is this possible? And so Texas changed the way they were counting their positives. But now they're doing it to where wherever your address is, that's where it's going to count.
Okay.
And it just kind of sucks now because now you can't really rely on where those dots lie on a map. It's so complicated, man. Oh my God, I got a headache on it. But no, my point is like, you have to be careful with these numbers. You can't take the number of positives versus the number of deaths. Like, you can't do that anymore because now they're including like, yeah, there's a lot of presumptive positives. There's a lot of positive positives. And then you have, the numbers are skewed. The only numbers that I say, well, not even that anymore. You just can't rely on these numbers anymore. As an individual that doesn't have the depth of knowledge, if you will, I'm not trying to say people are dumb. I'm just saying that there's more to these numbers than what is posted. There's a lot of exceptions, and it's just complicated. I don't want anybody to get hyped on numbers because the numbers honestly are there to just, it's a warning. Listen to that warning. Don't get bogged down on the numbers. Listen to the warning, and the dots will tell you the propagation and, you know, where to be, when to be ready, how to be, all that stuff. That's all it is.
So I have one more. Again, this really isn't like a black and white fact that I'm looking for. I'm just your opinion, your suggestion, or not even suggestion. I just want to know how you feel about it. So the individuals out in the world that think this is totally bogus, that it is, made up. And I'm not really talking about Facebook trolls or this, that, and the other, but like, I know people that are close to me that I love that do not believe this is real. I mean, if you had somebody, or do you have friends or acquaintances that are like that, what is your response?
Yeah, that's kind of hard. That's a really good question. I respond in anger and frustration on how, it's not ignorance. It's just the fact that you choose to ignore reality or what's true and what's not, and completely disregard it. That's shameful. But as a healthcare provider, I have to be able to educate those people and help them understand. Can't save everybody, but definitely stay away from those people because they will be probably the ones that get you sick. That's a tough question, man. But honestly, like, that's the first thing that in my mind comes is anger and frustration. But then education is important, and I try to do it. But you can only do so much. If you know you've done what you could to make them understand and they still don't, then that's just what it is. Stay away from them. A true Christian, I believe, would keep an eye out for them and not judge. I think that's the worst thing we can do, is just judge. We are how we are. We are who we are. We're all stubborn in our ways. But we all have to be willing to be open, be giving, and don't panic. Don't, those kind of people, they build this emotional anger and panic. No, you just got to be calm, think it through, educate, care. That's all you can do.
I think that was a perfect response.
Thank you. Anybody else? The dumb question is the question you don't ask.
I think we all just really appreciate you taking the time out and getting with HAAC again and updating us. It just helps us stay connected and informed. And like I said, some of mine were just, how do you feel? What are your responses? Because I think it's helpful to know what each other's thinking. We're all going through something with this.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. This virus has touched a lot of people's lives, and more negative than positive. I do want to approach the time to thank individuals like Dr. Reichert for one. Like, that lady has put a lot of hours and a lot of dedication, and it is much appreciated. It's safe to say that she's probably one of the few primary care individuals that I personally feel like she almost like volunteered to do it. Like, she's doing this because, well, I know she likes it, but I could see that she has a super, she has a good heart. She has good intentions. And I want to throw a shout out to Dr. Reichert, all the hospitalists that are involved with the individuals in the hospital right now. Super prayers, hugs, all the primary care providers that are going out of their way to do more than just seeing patients or think about money. There's education component. There is getting involved with the community. There is reaching out to the mayor, judge, be heard, throw your 2 cents in there. Even if it's a small thing, it matters. Everybody needs to communicate with each other. You guys communicate with us. Tell us what's going on, whatever. Hey, Dr. Tovar, I got this patient here. I don't know, something smells funny. Okay, let's see what we can do. Let's get him tested, whatever. We're all here to work together and not essentially a power trip, because that's something I really hate. But I really do appreciate a lot of what the hospital is doing and the city. I feel like this has tested the relationship between the city and the hospital. I hope it's a good thing. I hope it continues to go. But at the moment, this is only the beginning. This is the end of the beginning, if you will. There you go. So,
Thank you, Dr. Tovar.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you guys have anything that you want to update or share?
Welcome. You're welcome, guys. All righty. Bye, guys.
Ciao.